All right, we're here with the Civil Disagreements podcast with Jason and Bret. And Jason, you pinged me yesterday via text and said that you had a couple topics and maybe you want to recalibrate our Joe Biden bet. So fire away. I don't know what we're talking about today, but let me know what you're thinking.
Well, I just, we've got this bet where the odds are 3-1, where I wagered $100 and you can win $300.
So if Joe Biden wins
the Democratic primary,
I win $300 from you. If he loses and some other candidate wins, I pay you $100.
Right. And we made that bet prior to Joe Biden even entering into the race. And obviously, time has changed circumstances. And I thought it would be interesting, especially in light of our last podcast, where we discussed some of Joe Biden's perhaps challenges and advantages coming up, if we decided if we wanted to change our wager.
So do you think that does anybody want to buy out? If you were going to buy out, would you buy out today for, say if I said you can pay me $50 and the bet's off?
See, yeah, you've got this all backwards, my friend.
Okay, so you want me to buy out.
Let's civilly disagree about this, but yeah. The gambling.com as well as Predict It both are showing about a 5-1 gambling odds, saying that I have made a very, very wise wager.
So far, yeah.
So far.
This is a funny, investment principle, even like Warren Buffett talks about this, right? Like if you saw the value, if people were pricing the value of, say, a house that you own every day, it would fluctuate like this every day, right? Like the stock market does. But if you're an owner of the bet and you believe in it, you just buy and hold and wait until you get paid at the end of the day, right? So I think these numbers are going to fluctuate drastically. So yeah, on what you sent me, Kamala Harris is leading the pack, right?
According to these two sites.
So first off, yeah, Kamala Harris on both of the sites is the top of the list. In fact, on one of the ones you sent me, Elizabeth Warren has actually jumped ahead of Joe Biden as well. So
that's right.
Let me ask you this. So how, if we believe this, and Bernie Sanders is below Joe Biden still. So according to at least one of them, you have Kamala Harris in first, Elizabeth Warren in second, Joe Biden in third, and Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg tied at the same at fourth. And then on the second one, you have Kamala Harris, Joe Biden in second, Elizabeth Warren behind, and then followed by Bernie Sanders. So you have to come up with some plausible way at this point that Kamala Harris is going to somehow edge Joe Biden out in the Democratic primary process, right? How does she do that? Does she win Iowa? Does she win New Hampshire, South Carolina? What happens here?
Well, perhaps before we get into the nitty-gritty, we should say whether we want to recalibrate this bet. And then we can discuss our reasons why. And then at the end of the conversation, maybe we can confirm or change again. But how do you feel? Would you like this investment, it seems?
I think it's still fair money, personally. I don't think anything's changed in the last week to make me think otherwise. So, yeah, it's a fair bet. 3-1 odds that he wins.
You're not inclined to buy out at this point?
No. To me, it doesn't make any sense. You're going to see fluctuation. You'll see attacks on Joe Biden. People, like I said in the last podcast, will have good debate moments against him. He'll probably perform better in the next debate and he'll be more prepared and maybe he'll attack other people. Kamala Harris has plenty of stuff to be attacked if she wants to really start becoming aggressive. I know a lot of my friends in the Black community do not like prosecutors, and Joe Biden was a public defender and she was a prosecutor, right? Yeah. So there's plenty that you can go after that she's maybe not the best person to carry that torch. to be a champion of the people and minorities coming from the prosecutorial background. So I don't know. I think she's had her day in the sun for a post-debate moment, but I would be, I think she's going to be one of the players. If I was going to put odds on her, I don't think she has a better than Joe Biden's chance to win the nomination, but she's close up there. It's only probably going to come down to 4 or 5 people at the end here, and she's probably going to be one of them, would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. So one interesting thing that I wanted to mention, I took some notes here, is just going to be the role of female candidates this cycle. I think the Hillary Clinton legacy has kind of opened up a cognitive door for the possibility of a female president for the first time. I think there's like a very contrarian emotion towards Donald Trump that a female candidate can answer. And so there was a, 538 article today that I read about female candidates and the candidates in the race. So that would make me more inclined that my bet is even stronger, because you've got Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. And I think Elizabeth Warren has effectively usurped the energy from Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders is on his way downhill, and Warren is going to grab a lot of people inclined to support Bernie, who just didn't effectively stand up to the DNC in 2016 and wasn't a leader.
Yeah.
He's been a leader on many issues, but not a presidential leader.
Well, and Elizabeth Warren is kind of a thought and policy leader, so she actually has plans and ways to tax and pay for things that she wants to do, and it seems like Bernie's not quite as solid on policy that she has, so I think she's going to be able to articulate that better. It's really interesting, though, because I've seen Nate Silver in 538 talk a little bit about some of the demographics, and it seems like he's really captured a lot of the millennial vote for whatever reason. And, part of the question.
You mean Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders, yep. So does a lot of the millennial vote end up with Elizabeth Warren? Like he's got to lose some portion of voters, or is it just like women supporters? And to your point, though, which I think helps me, now if you're going to say, well, a woman candidate is going to be very strong and formidable this cycle, so you got 2, Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, kind of in the top tier.
And a couple others who are polling around 1%, but
they're polling
Klobuchar and Gillibrand.
The stage is well represented.
I think pretty awesome is Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, the stage is well represented with women candidates. But my question then back to you would be, how does that split up? Do the majority of the women vote go with Kamala, or do they go with Elizabeth Warren or one of the other candidates? They're going to be split up between other candidates, so that's why in the last podcast
that's interesting.
You're splitting up portions one way or the other. They're all going to end up in the same place, and then you got Joe Biden with the biggest plurality over there. So
interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. They're both going to be heavyweights and not drop out early in the primary, so they'll be splitting up the vote. I mean, here are the numbers that I thought were interesting. So you've got 94% of Americans, I think, who said that they would vote for a woman. Okay, but however, 1/3 of people believe that their neighbors would vote for a woman. Okay, so there's what people say and what people believe people would actually do is way different, right? In 2018, there was a historic number of women elected to Congress. You've got a CBS and YouGov poll that shows that Democrats have a clear preference for female candidates. And then some interesting final notes are that females can be perceived as more liberal and also as more honest, which can help them in a primary, but the article brought up some speculation that it could hurt them in a general election. against Trump, perhaps, because masculine behaviors like competence, ambition, or traditionally masculine behaviors like competence, ambition, aggressiveness, confidence, and toughness are seen as male. And so it's like this tightrope walk that female candidates have to do to have these authentically feminine roles of honesty and like temperance, but also to be able to compete effectively with these like masculine assumptions of leadership.
Yeah. I mean, part of this, though, I think it's all interesting. The energy on the left and the Democratic side is kind of moving towards a woman candidate. But part of me also says, well, we've tried this experiment before once already with Hillary Clinton, right?
Right.
And she was not able to close the deal at the end of the day. And she had, I just sent you that article. I don't know if you read that Politico magazine article over the weekend about, it's from an upcoming book looking into the 48 hours that the Access Hollywood came out tape of Donald Trump talking to Billy Bush saying, you can go up and start kissing women, and he grabs them by the P word. And when you're famous, you can do that. I mean, what an October surprise that was. I mean, that was the biggest bombshell October surprise I think you could throw at a candidate. And you did it in this particular year against a woman candidate, and Donald Trump still wins the election. How amazing is that? So part of me says we've run this experiment before. I agree with all your points, but all those points could have been made in 2016 too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. It's definitely going to be a fascinating primary. I don't think either of our positions have really changed. Maybe
So let me ask you this though. So getting kind of back to the nitty gritty of it. So if you say Kamala Harris, is going to win. Now, I think she's going to be formidable. Like if she wins the state of California, and I don't have the primary calendar up here, she's going to have to win some big states. But if she wins California, for example, pretty big deal. So, that's going to be the biggest electoral get for the Democrats, and she's, most likely, arguably, to get that. Now, I don't know that she probably won't win Iowa. I think that's fertile Biden territory. She probably, I don't think, will win New Hampshire. That's probably pretty fertile Bernie maybe territory, or maybe Elizabeth Warren. But I think Joe plays pretty well in New Hampshire. New Hampshire's always liked a independent-minded, speak your mind. They love John McCain up there. He's, won the New Hampshire primary twice, the Straight Talk Express. Joe Biden is the most like person to speak off the cuff and speak his mind on issues and be a real genuine figure. So I think Biden probably does really well in New Hampshire. So if you have him coming out of potentially an Iowa and a New Hampshire win, then you go to South Carolina. Kamala Harris can probably do pretty well there. There's a big black community vote that she's currently courting in South Carolina, and probably will do pretty well there. So, I mean, the race is going to be up for grabs, but you have to figure any of these people that wins has to have some type of roadmap to actually winning.
It seems like Biden's spending a lot of time in Iowa, and he's got a pretty strong advantage at this point from the polls that I looked at last week. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a real tough situation. I was actually surprised to see these odds makers putting Kamala Harris in the lead. My initial instinct was, after the first debate, I can understand that maybe there's some sentiment there, but it felt like there's something they know that I don't know, because all the polls seem to indicate Joe Biden's in the lead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just recency bias, man. Personally, I think it's because
I didn't see the trends of these polls. Like, I didn't see what the odds makers were saying 3 weeks ago.
Right,
or a
right.
month ago.
But I think, you know, I don't know, maybe you've looked at these closer than me. Kamala's probably gotten a bit of a bounce from the debate performance, right? She's
But
definitely.
it's leveled off. It doesn't seem like it's not like a rocket ship for her. I think you've made really good points, actually. So you know, I'll buy out for $10. You can
No,
just lock up $10 right now.
but I could probably get you to so I could take the 10 and then probably get you to recalibrate to another bet, maybe like a 2-to-1 bet. So I could get a for sure $10 now and lock you into another bet and be pretty good, right?
What's the other bet?
Maybe instead of 300-to-1, you pay me $200 if Joe Biden wins.
Oh, for $10?
No, well, $100 versus 200.
But but you'd lock up $10.
I'd lock up $10, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I'll think about it. We'll have to reassess. I mean, look, I see your path. Here are the roadblocks again. If Biden has another disappointing debate and Kamala does well, or Elizabeth Warren does well, it could be real tough for Biden to just turn the negative thoughts of his presidential campaign history against him.
Yeah, I agree. But, you know, there's probably going to be a lot of these debates, right? There's probably, you know, people like to say like, oh, the next debate's going to be the big moment.
Sure.
We saw this happen, you know, so many elections where the next debate's always the biggest. And I'll guarantee you, if we're in debate 4 and 5 and Biden's done mediocre in debate 2 and 3 and everybody's writing him off and he comes back in 4 and 5 in a big way, everybody's going to be like, Joe's back, he's made it, you know? So it's always, the next debate is always the most important debate, right? And there's you know, I think kind of what I had said last time was, if Joe is just kind of steady and shows his true north in what he believes and is just a steady performer and less on the far left side of the aisle, which you know, maybe we should talk about, like the Donald Trump tweet over the weekend regarding the 4 congresswomen that he deems that are having kind of a spat with Nancy Pelosi right now. You know, Joe Biden's whole ethos is to not pull the party too far to the left. He wants kind of the Nancy Pelosi-esque part of the party. And if he can just show that stability at the end of the day, I think he'll, you know, ride to the nomination eventually. So
right, and it probably benefits him. I think your point's just well taken, that he's got this so there's like the rational argument Joe's trying to make, but then there's also the emotional counter arguments to Joe's candidacy, which are being effectively split up by multiple candidates like Warren and Harris and Sanders. And so that just, as long as Joe doesn't kind of gaff it, he probably has the best lane. I can also see, for all the concerns of having a female candidate lead the ticket, having a female vice presidential candidate could be great for enthusiasm and to counter a Donald Trump campaign with 2 white men on the ticket, right?
Yep.
And so that makes a lot of sense too. I can almost see a conversation between the top tier candidates saying, like, early on, you know, maybe around January, February, March, like, Joe, we're going to fall in line behind you and make this like a cohesive Democratic ticket rather than just mudslinging and fierce fighting. But we'll see. It could be a lot of mudslinging and fierce fighting.
So basically what we've learned at this point is there really there's almost no difference in the state of our bet. We're still pretty much tied to some of our opinions. Maybe I'm bringing you a little bit over, but at this point, I still am unmoved that Joe Biden's going to win. But you're pretty.
I'm not going to try to. I'm not going to try to bluff you, Brett. I'm going to be honest. I agree. I think, as far as the odds are concerned, it's about a 3-1 for Joe Biden. It's fair. But honestly, in my heart of hearts, I think you've made a good bet, my friend.
Okay.
And I think Joe Biden probably has the best chance of winning. He could mess it all up. He's done that in the past. So it could happen again. But yeah, I think you've made a good bet.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm completely prepared, as we've had a number of these bets in the past. Maybe one day we should actually tell the viewers all of our bet history on this kind of thing. It'd be kind of funny. But I'm sure we'll have many times where one of us wants to get the other one to buy out or double down or whatever, as we've seen. So yeah, it'll be really fun to track this actually and have a video and an audio to go back and remember where we were at these different points. Just so that you know, so I pulled up the polling data from Real Clear Politics, and right now the national average that the Real Clear Politics has Biden at 27%, Warren at 16%, Sanders at 14%, Harris at 14%, and then Buttigieg way down at 6%. So on the average, Biden is holding very firm. He's close to my 3-1 odds already right now, and you've got all these other candidates splitting up that portion, and I think they're all going to just be up or down a few points between the 3 or 4 of them actually. Really, it's pretty fascinating. Iowa and New Hampshire polling, the averages on those are very, very close. Biden 26%. Sorry, I got a little bit of a cold. Sanders.
What's Sanders? That? Sanders is on top of one?
Well, Biden's at 26% in Iowa. Sanders is at 15.7%. Warren's at 13%. Buttigieg at 10%. And Harris down at 9% on that one. So there you have Harris, underperforming her national average in Iowa. So you got to say, well, that's not really indicative of a lot of strength there. And then followed by, in New Hampshire, Biden's at 29%. So he's pulling ahead of his average there. 29% followed by Sanders again at 16%. And then Warren at 11%. Buttigieg at 10%, and Harris way down at 6% there. So even further underperforming her average. So that's pretty fascinating right there, actually, because
6% in New Hampshire.
Yeah. So there's a very interesting point I think to be made there is that Harris, all these media national conversations are happening on politics, Twitter, and conversations like this on YouTube and social media, and you're seeing this average support for Harris across the country due to a debate performance. But is that gonna? Yes, the national average may be leaning more towards her or more a higher percentage due to the debate performance. But is that just recency bias, and is that just social media performance really? If you look at the actual voters who are probably going to be voting in Iowa, New Hampshire, and these upcoming states, she's looking less than her national average. So I think you're getting a more representative polling average of likely voters. Granted, these polls are going to be, some are going to be registered voters, some are going to be likely, and different polling organizations will be screwed up. But I think that shows perfectly that politics, Twitter, and national polls may not be the reality once the rubber meets the road and the voting starts.
For sure. I mean, we saw that in 2016 too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even the polls, I mean, they seemed way off mark.
Absolutely.
Disinformation campaigns, or people were just not answering the polls honestly, or the polls were being deceptive in and of themselves. Hard to say.
Yeah.
But they were certainly wrong and drastically wrong.
Yeah, when we, the Democratic nomination is going to be fascinating to see how that goes, but maybe as equally fascinating, the general election could be quite rich with, topics and information. But I think Donald Trump will certainly underpoll his actual support in the country all the way through the election. I think he'll get a higher percentage of actual votes and percentage of the vote than probably most, if any of the polls will give him leading up to the election, just like pretty much happened last time. A lot of people won't say that they're going to vote for him, but they may. And, it'll depend on who the actual nominee is to see, how good of a chance. I think if Biden is the nominee, he's got real trouble, personally.
And so the next nomination battle on the 17th and on the 17th, the CNN and the DNC are going to decide which 20 candidates qualify for the debate coming up. And they'll be announcing that the following day with a live drawing to determine who's on the first night and the second night of the debates. And those debates are going to take place Tuesday, July 30th and Wednesday, July 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And the debates are going to be in Detroit.
So it's interesting the way, I don't know that, I guess that's the fairest way to do it. But God, you got to figure, like, wouldn't you rather have the top 10 best candidates, highest polling candidates on one stage together? But maybe the fairest thing is to do the drawing so that, everybody's got a chance to be next to Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. I guess that's the fairest way to let other candidates get national exposure. But man, so part of me thinks that it's, it's just a disservice to the voters to some extent to not allow these candidates to really mix it up with the top tier candidates. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to make it as fair as possible. They're trying to be as inclusive as possible. Keep in mind, we're in July of 2019. The first primary is not till February 2020. So there's plenty of time to thin the field. I think that's the perspective. I think they're countering the whole DNC fiasco that seemed like they were ganging up in the primary for their favored candidate. And this time, Tom Perez and the DNC wanted to dispel that by being as inclusive and fair and transparent as possible. I think that's a good thing, and we'll see what it produces. It's the next debate's going to be important, but I agree with what you said earlier as well, that each debate is the most important debate as they come.
I mean, you could have Joe Biden get a draw with, Andrew Yang and all of the lower tier, I forget, Kirsten Gillibrand. I mean, these are smart people and everything, but you could have, the leading candidate not on stage with any of the other top tier candidates. Like, I think the last debate.
Do we know? Sorry to interrupt. I don't know anything actually, and now that I think of it, I'd like to know more about what that process is. Are they weighting candidates evenly?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're just blind drawing who gets which night.
You've got 20 people, and it can just turn out any way possible, and it's live on camera for everyone to see.
Yeah,
is that how it works?
I believe that's right. Yeah.
So the network will air a live drawing to determine which candidates will debate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's quite interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the fairest way to do it. That way, I mean, it's the fairest to all the candidates, especially the lower tiered candidates, right? Yeah. And like the last debate, at first Elizabeth Warren was put into the first night, right? And there was no other top tier candidates in her night. And at first I was like, man, that's a bummer for her. It'd be better for her to be on the big night with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders and everybody. But then I started thinking, well, it's actually maybe really good for her because now she's kind of like a big heavyweight. And even Julian Castro,
Yeah,
He was a big standout in that first night, and they both got really good airtime and good media out of being the stars from that night. Had they been on the next night, they probably would have been overshadowed potentially by Kamala Harris's attack on Joe Biden, right? And so maybe they wouldn't have gotten all of the coverage that they did. So I don't know. It's fascinating gameplay strategy and game strategy at this point. But yeah, that's we'll definitely recap the debate and eagerly await to see how it goes down and who wins and who loses. And I'm sure we'll have a recalibration afterwards. Potentially,
yeah, we'll see.
We'll just stay pat like we are.
Yeah, that's possible. It's possible. We got a long road ahead.
That's for sure. Jason, anything else?
I think we covered it. Looking forward to the next one.
All right. This is Civil Disagreements with Jason and Bret, and we'll see you next time.